Hello. 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 I am the ghost of Talkumentary. About a year ago, we started this podcast. It is an honor and a privilege to welcome strangers to Talkumentary, a show where we watch documentaries and then get together and talk about them. Talkumentary will find you in the end. You'll find out that we're all friends. Don't be sad, I know you will. But don't give up until Talkumentary will find you in the end. Hello, friends. It's Jeff, the host of Talkumentary. This is our 46th episode, and I'm here this week. Brice is strumming the chords, and Lauren is tickling the ivories.
No.
Over there, Brice Necker, the friendly ghost, and my sister Lauren, with the vile corruption, the sawed-off head of Joe the boxer. All right, Brice, that's good. Welcome, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the first ever and probably the last ever
Nails on a chalkboard
live show.
Sounded like cats.
No,
screaming.
It didn't. It sounded amazing, and I hope everyone listening writes in and says, I don't know what Lauren was talking about because that was incredible. Brice, before we go any further into this episode, I want to get this out of the way. Go out, rate, and review our podcast on your favorite podcast streaming service, and let us know what you think of our show. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. Just look for @Talkumentary Podcast, or you can shoot us an email at
info.talkumentary@gmail.com.
Yeah, exactly. See, you did it.
I did it. I
You
have
know.
for the last 3 episodes.
You know some things. You're not as big of an idiot as you seem.
Funny.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it. This week, we took a peek inside the mind of a musical and artistic man, some might call a genius, others in the room might not. But we take an up-close and personal look at some of the results of the artistic expression of none other than the seemingly pure and childlike lo-fi artist named Daniel Johnston in a 2005 documentary titled The Devil and Daniel Johnston. Here is the trailer.
My name is Daniel Johnston. This is the name of my tape. And it's Hi, How Are You? And I was having a nervous breakdown when I recorded it.
Try to remember, but my feelings can't.
And he was a skinny little kid, fairly demented. But he said, I just wanted to give you my tape. And I put it on the tape player, and it just blew my mind.
There's really nothing to even compare it to. It goes way beyond Dylan's basement recordings, or any other body of work that I can think of.
You start off hearing this noise, then eventually you hear the Beatles. You hear the whole symphony.
But it was undeniable that something was dreadfully wrong with him.
He was thin as a rail and losing weight.
Was completely delusional. He was hospitalized almost immediately. He was obsessed with the devil and Satan. He became so obsessed that it was all he could talk about.
This is Daniel Johnston speaking from a mental hospital. They tell me I'm crazy here. Out come the demons.
Listen up and I'll tell a story about an artist growing old. Some would try for fame and glory, others aren't so bold.
All right, Brice, man, this was your jam.
Yep.
You've been pushing us to cover this one since we started this show. And we'll get into in a little bit why you chose this one. But you love this documentary, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
It's my favorite documentary.
Of all time?
Of all time. So far.
So far that we've seen, or just that are you convinced that this has got it?
That we've seen,
Okay.
There's always potential for, more, but
What would take the cake? What would it have to be? What would it have to?
I don't know. I'll know if it happens. So.
Okay. All right. So I know you love this one, but I'm curious about the sister sitting over there. She gave me a little bit of the vibes, I think. Lauren, I wasn't familiar with Daniel Johnston at all before this. Just, I know that I'd seen the drawings before, whether it was on Kurt Cobain's t-shirt or on something somewhere in a record store somewhere, but I didn't know what it was. What about you?
No, I had no idea who this guy was.
Couple words. What do you think? What did you think of this film? You got 2 words.
2 words.
Uh-huh.
Manic anxiety.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I
meaning that you felt
Yes.
anxious watching this?
This made me very uncomfortable.
Really?
I did not like this at all.
Okay.
I struggled to get through this. I think I probably stopped it at least 4 times and watched it in like 20-minute increments because
Yeah.
and I just finished it this morning because I was like, I got to go over there.
Good thing I postponed the episode.
Yeah, I know.
Jesus.
Well, but when you texted saying you wanted to postpone the episode, I was watching it and I was like, "Oh, thank God! Turn this
off.
show off."
I gotta watch Labyrinth or something.
Yeah, I need a palate cleanser.
Yeah. So this was directed by Jeff Feuerzig, who won the documentary directing award for this film at the 2005 Sundance Film Festival. And Brice and I actually had the pleasure of chatting with him for an episode of what we're calling Talkumentary Insider. Pew, 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 pew. Make sure you stick around because at the end of this episode, we are actually going to play that interview that we had with Jeff Feuerzig, and it was really cool. And I did like this episode before that, or I'm sorry, this documentary before talking to him, but just like most of the time, once you talk to someone involved with it, now you're even more invested, and I liked it even more after that. We're also going to have it on a separate episode as well, but if you want to just listen to it directly after this, you can just hang tight and listen. So it was a very enjoyable chat with Jeff. Jeff, if you're listening to this, thank you very much. We really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm looking forward to covering another one of your documentaries at some point. I want to do the Rocky one. I don't remember what it's called. The Real Rocky, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that. Anyway, produced by Henry Rosenthal, distributed by Sony Pictures Classic, and we rented, or I should say, Brice purchased this through Amazon. The Devil and Daniel Johnston has a fresh 88% on Rotten Tomatoes tomato meter with 111 reviews, and an audience score of 91% with over 25,000 ratings. Here's a few of the critic reviews. A 2 out of 4 rotten review from Richard Probst of The Independent Critic says, more of a film for Johnston's almost cult-like admirers. So I guess. And a fresh review from Josh Gawler of Spectrum Culture says, quote, a convincing case for how the transcendence of Johnston's art stemmed from the rawness with which he expressed himself in spite of and not due to his demons, which was interesting. And a fresh review from Robert W. Butler of Kansas City Star says, quote, what makes Devil fascinating is the harrowing. I heard your head nod. People can't see that unless they're watching.
Yep.
Anyway, what makes Devil fascinating is the harrowing arc of Johnston's life. This is a story of youthful promise undermined by horrendous mental illness. Anyway, we're going to have credit information in the showy nights.
Showy nights.
Let's get into this one. A quick warning, if you want to see what happens in this documentary before we spoil it, this is your spoiler alert. So you can go watch it or not. Here we are. All right, let's talk about why we chose to watch The Devil and Daniel Johnston for tonight's episode. Brice.
Oh, yeah.
Hit it.
We decided to watch it because it's tremendous.
Why do you love this so much? Why does it grip you so hard? Why does it put two hands
That is
around?
No,
Go
we
and
are
grip
not
you.
talking like this.
Why does it tickle your fancy?
I hate this.
There's some imagery here.
Yep.
Yes.
I don't know. It was one of those that I saw just years ago, and I didn't know who Daniel Johnston was before watching it, and just from the opening scene of him talking into the mirror to the greatest songwriter alive today, and then just through the whole thing, like I couldn't look away.
Do you think it's Daniel's music that caught you? Do you think it's his kind of his progression of or like pushing the artistry through the mental illness? What do you think it is about this whole thing that captured you so much?
I think it was his kind of lo-fi take on music, and it kind of enlightened me to think that anyone can make music. And that, you know, you don't always have to make something for other people. You can just make something because you want to express yourself.
Yeah. And for someone like Daniel, it was probably easier for him to express himself through his drawings or his music than it was.
Yeah, for sure.
Vocally. I mean, how many times would you say that you've seen this, do you think?
Probably 10 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the way through front to finish?
Yeah.
Or front to finish. That's not all right. Lauren, how many times are you going to watch this in
I
your
will
life?
probably never watch this again.
Fair.
Yeah. What about expectations, predictions? Lauren, I said Devil and Daniel Johnston. You said...
I was excited. It says devil in it.
Okay. Well, I have another one for you coming up called The Devil on Trial.
Yep.
And I think that's going to be a little bit more up your alley. Yes. You're not on that, Brice. So, anyway, so thoughts, predictions?
I didn't know anything about him.
Yeah.
I just thought maybe, I don't have any idea.
Yeah.
I didn't really have any, but I definitely did not get anything that I expect. Like I did not expect what I got at all.
What do you think about this film? Why were you so anxious watching it? Why did it make you feel so uncomfortable?
He was just, I don't know. I mean, I think it was just the manicness behind what he was doing. And because a lot of it was shot really well. Like the film itself.
Yeah. You can't really say much about that because it was
it was great.
Yeah.
And it was and the amount of footage was incredible. It was an incredible story. It was. It was his presence that made me uncomfortable. Something about like the manicness of it made me, I had a pit in my stomach the whole time trying to watch it.
I think here's something funny. That's how I felt when I watched Grey Gardens. And
really?
you loved Grey Gardens. I really did. I felt like the whole time I had a pit in my stomach when I watched that one because they were always talking over each other and they were, it was all, I didn't know what was happening, and to me that wasn't an enjoyable, like when it comes to filmmaking.
Sure, yeah.
It was just a home video. Where this one, a lot of work, a lot of production went into, and after talking to Jeff Fierzig, it was, a lot of DIY production. He literally went through and listened to every one of those tapes, every word, and made notes and made, so the undertaking of boxes and boxes and boxes full of art and music and spoken word and, just recording your inner thoughts and all that. You have to go through that and you have to create a story from it. So that was really good to me. And I think that's part of the reason I liked this one so much.
Yeah. And I appreciate that part of it too.
Yeah.
I'm not here to just shit all over this documentary.
right.
That's not at all it. I can appreciate like what went into making this.
Sure.
And all of the footage was amazing. Like it, the story itself was amazing. It just, there was just something about it that I just could not get past. And it was just really difficult for me to push through.
No, I get that. And I do see that, because a lot of times I think with, when you're looking at something that's a little lower fi and a little less polished, and then you have somebody that's the main character and they clearly are struggling with their mental health. And I think a big part, I too felt uncomfortable on some parts, but I think that was kind of the intention for certain parts, probably not for the whole, but like listening to and we'll get into this a little bit more, but listening to the way like his mom and dad originally addressed his illness, and, like, and him trying to be a normal person and express himself in a world that isn't maybe as prepared for somebody or knows exactly how to deal with that. So I had no idea what to expect going into this one. I wouldn't have been able to pick a Daniel Johnston song out of a lineup if you had asked me to. I didn't know his story. And truthfully, the music in itself is really not my thing. I don't really care for the super lo-fi. Like I don't need things to be highly polished, but the sort of indie, like, there was a point in time where, in the early 2000s, every, indie, little hipster band wanted to sound like Daniel Johnston. So have your guitar a little bit out of tune and bang on the piano and sing kind of strange. You're also a rich kid from, whatever. So, so it's not doing the same thing, but, so not really my thing, but I really liked the story. I thought it was super captivating. It was interesting. It was compelling to me. And I think it was told very well. So a few details. The Devil and Daniel Johnston chronicles Johnston's life from childhood up to the present, as of the making of the film, with an emphasis on his experiences with bipolar disorder and how it manifested itself in demonic self-obsession. We get to look at a ton of cassettes, drawings, videos, and a bunch of small doodles and sketches all over the place that Daniel created throughout the years, which really gives an interesting look into mental illness, I thought, and how that coincides with art and the making of art and the struggles that a person dealing with these sort of internal demons can have just living in the society that we've created. We'll get into standouts here. And what seemed to stand out the most to me was just the unending amount of creativity that came out of Daniel. And it seems so effortless. And in the world of, Instagram reels and things like that, there's a couple, I don't know them off the top of my head, but there's a couple profiles that I follow. There's one where this young man, his parents, he's become kind of a hit where his parents will give him a card and they say, draw something, and he draws it, and it's like so effortless and it's fucking perfect.
Simple,
like it's a real simple, good.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I follow him too.
Yeah. They'll say like two things and he puts them together.
Yeah.
Oh,
effortlessly, and that's kind of what, when you're dealing with like a mental illness, but sometimes, it almost feels like that amount of creativity is dampened when you have a neurotypical brain, because you don't, or when you, I guess, just don't struggle with that sort of illness that Daniel struggled with. Do we think that if we were able to unapologetically let go of social norms and societal kind of constraints, I guess, would that create kind of a flow would that sort of creative flow, I guess, be more attainable to?
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah. Why? Like, are we stopping ourselves from doing that?
Yeah. I think when it comes to creating things, we have how other people view it in mind, rather than just creating it to create.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I also think that like even when they talk about like, you know, when people hit a certain age, you know, because I feel like some people with I don't know what the right word is, if it's neurodivergence or whatever.
Any kind of mental like
right.
Yeah.
They kind of they keep more of that childlike mentality.
Sure.
Where their imagination doesn't ever get muted by whatever else the social norms, you know, going to work or, you know, growing up or being mature or, you know,
stresses of paying bills or having
and you hear
you're
like grow up, you know,
you're
rub
supposed
some
to get a
dirt on
job
it and keep going type of a thing. When you've got that child like not that everyone with a mental illness has a childlike mind, but more of a untethered mind.
Well, and that's what it looked like we were seeing. And he was getting pressure to grow up and get a job and, you know, do all those things, but he just kind of couldn't. I mean, I think that was even the words that Jeff Thierzik, who became very close with him, even used, hopefully not to misquote, but even saying like he could not express himself the way other people could. You know, physically he could not do it. Mentally he could not do it. So he had to do things like this. I thought it was really well. That's going into another standout moment. Let me stop there. Brice, standouts for you, man. What do you want to talk? What makes you excited about this one that you wanna talk about first?
I think one thing that stood out to me a lot is his relationship with his family. He comes from a somewhat large family and religious background, and yet he, being the youngest, is on kind of a different trajectory than his brothers and sisters and just drives his parents crazy.
Absolutely crazy. Yeah. So they, you know, like you said, he grew up in like a fundamentalist Christian family and very traditional right wing, clearly not understanding or appreciating the art he was doing. But more importantly, it's not really about the art. More importantly, not understanding his mental illness. You know, to me, that was the real story of this was not that he was, you know, a quote unquote genius musician and artist, because, you know, if you were to ask me what makes a genius artist or what, you know, I have friends that I consider to be, you know, far and away a quote unquote better artist than Daniel Johnston or better musician than Daniel Johnston, but it's a different ball game. It's a different, you know, so his story is teaming his demons with that, the devil and Daniel Johnston, you know, his inner demons that eventually he attributed to being actual demons, you know, and in a struggle with Satan, probably, you know, if you're going into this psychological, probably because he was classically conditioned to believe that there was a devil and a God, and, you know, and them not understanding that his family, you know, his mom would chastise him like crazy, which, you know, I do like that at one point, one of the guys was like, but it wasn't without provocation. You know, he was getting ridiculed, but he kind of wanted things to be on tape too, and he wanted to record them. I actually do have some audio here from his mom giving him what for.
Literally all he cared about was making art and being John Lennon, and his parents' rules were in the way of that. All he wanted them to do was just keep the lights on, keep the power on so he could draw.
Dan was getting to be a problem. He wanted to do everything, but he didn't want to do any of his chores, like help mow the lawn, wash the car, or any of those things. And I thought he was lacking in training. I had to settle that.
Dan Johnston's crazy, but I can't laugh. I don't want my son to be a laughing stock, and that's what you are. You're so hard up for attention that you're willing to do something insane to be a laughing stock.
Every bit of the supposed persecution that Daniel portrays in early music was there, but I'm not saying it was without provocation. He did it. He brought it on himself. He would cause it to tape record, to film. Many times, Mabel would open the basement stairs door, and she used to call him an unprofitable servant. You're an unprofitable servant of the Lord. You need to leave the house and get a job. And he used to call himself an unserviceable prophet.
And you have no shame. You like it that way. You're an unprofitable servant. What do you contribute? Well, Dan, we're contributing 10% of our earnings, and we're working hard for our earnings. We aren't unprofitable. Even if you earn money, you won't contribute to God. You just go out and buy a bunch of rubbish. And you love it that way.
I really didn't like it when he taped me giving him what for.
What for?
I didn't think he would do that.
She would really harangue him, and it was hard on him. It was, but he's this sort of like coal burning in the basement, and it's heating up the whole house, and they're just going insane from it. So the whole place is just going wild because it's just such a problem.
Calling someone a coal burning in the basement and heating up the whole house is such a good way and profound way and accurate way to describe somebody who's causing trouble or causing stress in a household. Whether you have a kid who's, like, you can't just ignore the fire that's burning in the basement because it's heating up the whole house. I really appreciated that guy saying that. And can I just say that his mom's sort of like smile when she was talking about how she was back there kind of gave me the heebs-jeebs, I'm not going to lie. She's like, I don't really like that he did that. I would give him what for? And she's kind of smiling. I'm like, oh, why does this make me so uncomfortable? I didn't care for, I didn't know his mother, but I was like, whenever she got on it, for some reason made my skin crawl.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure why. I feel like she reminded me of someone and I can't.
I told you I can't put my finger on who it is.
Yeah. Anyway, anything else about his family that we want? So the films were funny.
Yeah.
The films he made of his mom, like, not completely inaccurate, I guess.
He would play himself, and then he would play his mom
Yeah.
yelling at him.
That was funny.
Yeah.
He had an easy way of getting new writing material with that.
Yeah. And he just played the tape over the top of it. So it was actual, like, actual audio from what she was saying. So it's pretty cool.
As a big part of his Super 8 movies, and then also into his music.
Yeah. Yep. Lauren, standouts.
One standout for me was this Lori chick.
Lori.
His muse. I liked how he said, there was one quote that he said, she inspired 1,000 songs and then I knew I was an artist. And I thought that was really sweet.
Yeah.
Even though it's a little borderline obsessive, I felt like she was a good sport about it.
Yeah.
And
well, it seemed like most of the women in his life were pretty good sports about his obsession.
I agree.
They must have seen, and I don't mean to cut you off completely, but like they must have seen something in him that was truly innocent.
Maybe.
Because, go ahead.
Yeah, it's like Kathy McCarthy said there was something so angelic about him.
Yeah.
And then the more like they hung out, she was like, no, there's
something
deeply
really
troubling.
Wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because like the and maybe it's just a way to respectfully show them in the film, I don't know, but when we talked to Jeff a Feuerzig, it didn't sound like he really filtered a whole lot of what was going on. He made it sound like that was really the story that you're seeing is really the story that was there. Mm-hmm. And so, that I too find that interesting. Like, there's a good chance that if Daniel Johnston was young Daniel Johnston today, he could be written off as a creep.
Oh yeah, 1,000%.
And maybe viewed as a threat. And I'm not going to say that nobody viewed him that way back then necessarily, but from what we saw in the film, that wasn't the case. And I hope, he clearly, from what we know of, was a fairly innocent dude besides the things that he did when he had his mental breaks, which we'll get into in a little bit. But go ahead, Lauren.
I just thought it was kind of cool that, like, I think I wrote something else down about it. Gosh, where'd it go? Sorry. But I just thought it was cool. I also thought the part where when they were talking about, like, how when she when he found out that she had a boyfriend, it almost fueled that, like, museness of her, because then he's pining for her, like, she's gone, and it never stopped his entire life. Like, he, there was times when he, like, ran into her at that mortuary or whatever, like, it just, she was a muse from the beginning, and was a muse all the way through his life, which was insane to me. It's like, it's the same person.
Yes, and it's so close to being inappropriate.
Yeah.
Because it so easily could have crossed that line.
Right.
And my hope is that it never did.
I hope so too, but it more like, well, the documentary made it seem like he kind of was in on the the prospect that she was just a muse. Like, that's what he needed to be able to
when you say something like she caused 1,000 songs.
Right.
And, she was the reason for a lot of my creativity,
right,
then it's like you do understand then, he's not completely unaware of what's happening in the world. He's not completely shut off to what people are doing around him and what's happening around him. I think it's easy, even for myself, I'm calling my own self on this, to think of Daniel Johnston as somebody who, has no idea what's going on and he's stuck in his little world, where I do think that was a lot of his time spent in his own little world, but that doesn't mean he wasn't aware of what was happening. And like, to your point, understanding, like, that heartbreak has given me a lot of fuel for things to draw and write.
Right.
So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah. I don't know. That part just kind of stood out for me. And then the other thing, like, the very first thing that, and you guys kind of touched on this earlier, but the very first thing that I wrote down about this was that there are people on this earth who would kill for the amount of passion that this man has. Like, the amount of fire burning within him that needs to, like, be let out in creative ways is, like, if you could bottle that and sell it, you would be a billionaire.
Right. People have been trying forever.
Yeah.
My phone's buzzing. You can cut this out, man. Or you can just
you look like Mr. Magoo.
I thought it was really crazy how Daniel. So this played out like a Hollywood movie, right? In a lot of ways, the story from beginning to end, the journey that he went on, but he was both the hero and the villain. He was both the protagonist and the antagonist. And he attributed the villain to being the devil, but somehow he still wrote music that was seemingly pure. I haven't been through his whole catalog. It's a long ass catalog, but it's a lot there. But for somebody who claims to be as at war, and Brice, you maybe have listened to more of his music than I have, I would imagine.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah. Does he have songs that aren't just about love and hope? Does he have songs that are about,
Yeah.
The devils that are inside of him, because for someone who claimed to be at war with Satan so much, I was a little taken back by how much of his stuff was about love and hope.
Yeah. I think when he would sit down to like make these songs and stuff, that he would kind of focus on love and hope and all that. But there are a lot of songs he writes about dealing with his manic depression, and but he does it in such a way that it's still like hopeful, and
yeah,
it's not like dark and brooding music. It's Daniel Johnston,
right? It's really kind of an interesting. This whole thing is an interesting story to me, and it's so complex in my mind, and I think maybe it speaks to a little bit about what Lauren was saying with feeling a little anxious watching this, because I found that I'm actually struggling tonight, and when I was writing my notes and things, to figure out how to talk about this that does it any justice, that does it respectfully, that does it and kind of is able to encapsulate the story the right way, like you have to just watch it and you have to appreciate. It's hard to pick it apart, but there's also a lot to talk about.
There's so much,
yeah, there's a lot packed into the hour and 50 minutes or whatever it was that we watched. I feel like no matter what we do, it's going to leave out some important aspects of this man's story. But whether you enjoy his music or not, whether you connect with his art or not, his story is compelling. And there's really no better way than just watching it. So go out and watch this if you're listening and you're going, what the fuck are these people talking about? Something else that stood out to me was how extreme his mental breaks were. So they mentioned that he would, in one of the more kind of heart-wrenching parts of the film, when his dad was crying, talking about he would give Daniel the medicine, but Daniel wouldn't take the medicine secretly. And that goes to show you how aware Daniel really was that his mental illness was fueling his artistry.
Yeah.
Because I know that if I felt like, if I got on a medicine that I felt like completely took away all of my creativity, and my creativity was what was my thing, was my
what you live for,
what I lived for.
I mean, because that is what you lived for.
Yeah. And, to think that, like, and he even mentioned at one spot, like, I just feel numb. Like, I don't have anything. So he would be like a couple days, before his concerts, he would stop taking his medication so that he'd have that creative flow, that energy, that spark. That spark.
More lively show.
Yeah. But that comes with a risk, because then you go into mental breaks. And the two parts that stood out the most to me were the plane crash and the lady who jumped from the window.
Yes.
Those are obviously very dangerous. He's lucky that nobody died from those things. Yeah. But people got hurt. Things got hurt. I'm going to play the plane crash scene here. I didn't put the plane crash and the window scene. I just picked one because I didn't want to put two, things. But here's this real quick. Let's see. There we go.
In America. No, he thought he was Casper. He was reading a Casper comic book. There's a picture on the front of the book of Casper in a parachute. And Dan decided, let's bail out. Let's jump out. And I said, no, we can't do that. We don't have any parachutes. So his mind was gone. Eventually, he took the key out, turned the engine off, threw the key out the window.
How did you recover the flight?
Well, he grabbed the controls, took the plane away from me. He's stronger than me. We were finally going straight up and then straight down. But he finally let go in time for me to get it out of the spin. Nothing down there but trees. but I did training on ditching in trees, so I didn't stall it. I flew it into the trees between two big ones. We got out safe, but the plane was total loss. The family came and got us, got me. We put him in the hospital and left him there for 5 months.
There's Dan. He's had a good time because he thought that was great. It's coming down in a spin. He was all mixed up. He felt like he did something good and he wanted us to be proud of him. There's Dan being rolled into the emergency room. They passed a Church of Christ, and to Bill and Dick's amazement, this sign was on the Church of Christ bulletin board out front. God promises a safe landing, but not a calm voyage.
So the scene right before that, his dad was talking about the when he was given Daniel's medicine and he was throwing it away and he was just sobbing, and the way his dad cried, and something about seeing a grown man cry is really difficult for me. And you can tell his family loved him a lot. You know, they were willing to do what they needed to do. You know, he lived with them until his parents were gone. And I think Jeff Fierzig said that his brother kind of took over as his caretaker after that. Mental health help and assistance had and still does have a long way to go. And I believe that his family just wasn't knowledgeable and equipped to know how to handle him in the ways that he really needed. You know, to take him into that plane might not have been the smartest thing in the world. Now, how would you have known that someone wasn't taking their meds and they weren't, you know, I don't know. And there's no judgment here. You know, it's just you know, your heart breaks when you hear about things like that. The other story, like I mentioned, was when Daniel, believing that an elderly woman was possessed by Satan, he broke into her apartment, causing the woman to jump from her second floor apartment window and break her legs. She had told him to shut up out of her window because I think he was like shouting out and yelling.
Yeah, he was out in the street making noise. She said, shut up. And
he went up there. Eventually he got the door open, and I think he had a knife. Do I remember that right?
There was, I don't think there was a mention of a knife, but whatever he said or however he was acting was enough to scare her into jumping out of her second story window. And this is an elderly woman. And when he was talking to the police after that, they got a quote from him. I cast out this lady's demons. And then it's like, so did you throw her out the window? The demons threw her out the window.
Yeah. Right.
And he was like, I had left already. The demons threw her out.
Right. And I truly believe that he believed that. That's the part about this that's so crazy. You know, it's such a scary couple of stories.
Yeah.
Right. Where, like I said, they're lucky that nobody died. And to know that those sort of things are really happening inside a person's head. It's not just, I'm imagining things. Right. You are, but it's really happening in your head.
Do you think, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good.
Do you think?
Interrupt me, whatever. Fine. Fuck.
Whatever.
Get him.
Do
I think what? Just speak.
Fuck you.
Sorry, go ahead. Do I think what?
Do you think that when they were talking about when he was at a show or whatever and somebody gave him LSD, do you think that had something to do with that whole devil thing?
I think so.
I think it was like bad trips and stuff like that. That's why I've never messed with any kind of drug like that, because gosh, you hear not very often, but there are times when people don't come out of that the same person. And when they do, it's a very conspiracy minded, like everybody's out to get them, the devil and demons are in things. Like, do you think that, I mean, obviously it didn't help, but do you think that exacerbated it to a point that it wouldn't have gone to had he not done that?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think
because it seemed like there was a turning point there where it was like that's when the whole devil part came in.
That's a good point. Yeah, and go ahead, Brice.
Yeah, I think with his schizophrenia, like that really brought that on. And then it wasn't just like a one-time thing. He started doing a lot of acid after that.
Yeah.
Which...
But the guy at the dentist from the Butthole
Oh my
Surfers,
God.
he had nothing to do with that, did he?
Why were they at the dentist with that guy? Is it
you got to
like
get him
just
where you can get him, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean,
he needed more dental
I was
work. But
gonna say, like of all places for that man to be,
he's in the right place. Yeah.
It seemed like a real dentist, but it might have been filmed in not a real dentist office. Like,
okay.
I don't know. But I believe he was the one who produced Daniel's record when he signed with Atlantic.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So I think he played a big role there.
Right.
But,
I just thought it was very funny that he was at the dentist because his teeth are bucked.
Yeah. It's interesting when you talk about the LSD experience that he had, because that was in the film the part where he really started going on about demons and devils, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Brice, who's seen it 10 times, I do believe that that's about the spot where he started really talking about that. Whether that's good storytelling on the part of the filmmakers, or if it's really what did it. And like you said, that could be a breaking point. When we did our Fantastic Fungi episode, they talk about how certain psychedelics can create new pathways and
alters
change
your
things in your brain. Yeah.
Right.
To where, now you're seeing things permanently. Yeah.
Permanently.
That's hopefully
that is
for the better.
nuts to
That's
me.
why they say if you're, in that documentary that we watched, they talk about if you're going to do it with a guide and do it in the right scenario, do it, at the right dosage and all that stuff.
Definitely not in the 80s at some fucking show.
Butthole Surfer show.
Right.
Yeah.
When you've already got mental illness.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
But the supply is there. It's easy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
But that just, to me, like that is the scariest part is that even somebody without a significant mental illness beforehand can do a drug like that and come out of it not
seeing demons
right.
and doing,
and
potentially doing things
right.
that they might
but
not
that
do.
that they don't, that their mind doesn't snap back from that,
Right. That's scary.
It's so scary.
Yeah.
Is that, not only was that kind of a turning point for like where he was mentally, but also he bashed his former manager over the head with a pipe.
Right. Oh my
bashed
God.
him 3 times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then enters Jeff Tartikoff.
Yep.
Who is just an incredible manager.
Right. Did literally more than he ever
should have maybe
done. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So another interesting thing, I kind of mentioned this already, but I want to bring it up again. Daniel sounded just like all the early 2000 hipsters bands, that they wanted to sound like the quirky lyrics, the simple chords, making all the kids who smell like patchouli and, they wear scarves in the summer and shit like that. Talk about how genius this band is, whatever. It feels so much less cringy coming from someone like Daniel, though.
Yeah.
Than it did from that, because that's who he really was.
Right.
You could tell it was really pure. It wasn't just like, let's say the weirdest shit that we can, we can figure out, and then all the little hipster kids will dance around, and, the worst we smell in our beards and
but we can afford to drive a brand new BMW
Subaru,
or whatever it is. Why was it a Subaru? Why was that
well,
your
because
go-to?
lesbians drive Subarus.
That is the stereotype.
Yeah, it is.
I got the best Birkenstocks.
Oh, I love my lesbian friends with Subarus.
Man.
Sorry to any of you listening.
Kim Whitehill. Cut that part
She
out.
said Kim Whitehill.
It's an inside joke. She's not really a lesbian, obviously.
Good. It's not obvious to me. I've never. Yeah. Anyway, what were you saying, Brice?
She's married to a man.
Okay.
Okay.
Doesn't mean she's straight.
No. I never said she was straight.
Okay, fair.
Does she have a Subaru?
God, we called her out with her first and last name.
That's all right.
It's all right.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Cut back in. Ready?
Okay, yep.
3, 2, 1. Bryce, what did you have to say about that? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Back to the acid. He wrote a song about doing acid with Caroline, and it was fun. It was fun. It was fun.
That's the song?
That's
so it's like this lighthearted, childlike, fun song, but also he's doing
Talking
things
about
like bashing managers over the head with pipes.
lead pipes, yeah.
Yep.
I loved how much material, like what we talked about a little bit, there was to draw from. I liked that all the cassette tapes that we saw were the actual ones because it was so Jeff Feuerzig, he said that that was, he went and had to listen to every single stitch of music, every word, everything. And
whoa.
Yeah.
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 Yep.
Ugh.
It's a lot of material to go over.
Yeah. But it made the documentary better because if they wouldn't have had that much, it wouldn't, it would have just been people sitting there talking about him, and it's hard to envision that stuff. So the fact that he had so much footage of actual life.
A lot to pull from, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that.
Too much.
Yeah. It made me motion sick first and foremost. But secondly, it made the documentary a little bit better just because.
Real footage is always better.
Always.
Always better.
Just because you can't and dramatization of that kind of stuff is always corny. It's always like the cheesiest thing.
There's no way to do it, and it's not corny.
No,
I've yet to find one anyway.
No, me either.
All right, so Daniel had a job at McDonald's for a while, which he took very seriously for a bit. It said that he was McDonald's most famous employee.
Was this before or after he bought the moped?
Bryce?
Do we got to go back a little bit? Because I want to talk about how he went and joined the carnival. Was that?
Yeah, so this was...
after, right?
Might have been after.
Okay.
Because he
watch the documentary.
He got evicted from his brothers and then moved in with his sister.
Yeah, and I wrote something down about living with his sister, too, about how he thrived at his sister's house because he was allowed to make a mess.
Yeah.
Like, that to me spoke volumes. Like, maybe, he wasn't allowed to, like, take up space in... What?
I'm wondering why that's going so shitty.
Oh, it's because it's way laggy.
Way laggy.
Way laggy. Because look, I haven't touched my thing for a really long time.
Okay. Well, hopefully it all goes.
Okay. Well. Anyway. Anyways, like maybe he wasn't allowed to take up much space at home. Not like physical space, but like, you know what I mean? Like he wasn't allowed to, like, you know how it is when you feel like you have to clean up after yourself all the time and you can't, like if you leave one little crumb somewhere that somebody's going to yell at you or like say you're not pulling your weight or doing your thing or whatever.
Well,
like it's like having somebody stand. Right. So
You
when he was at his
feel-
sister's, he was able to kind of, and they showed, I don't know if it was actual footage of it or not, but it was a mess.
Yeah.
It was disgusting.
Yeah.
And then like right after they were talking about that, they were like, and then he bought a moped and joined the carnival. Like, excuse me, what?
Right.
That's
like,
fucking insane.
Like,
so you've got this guy who is completely unstable.
Right.
And he has zero like I realize he's an adult, but there's no supervision whatsoever. Like he can just go buy a fucking moped and join a fucking circus or whatever.
I mean, that's
like,
kind of
insane.
the role that's cut out for guys like him, though, right? I mean, isn't that sort of the stereotypical when you can't do anything else, you join the
carnival,
you go be a
carny
and you
somewhere.
go and you're in with other,
transient
weirdos,
people.
quote unquote, and to me, it's like you can't write a story that's more, on the nose than that.
It sounds made up.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
You go from
Bless
from
you.
Daniel being at home, and then his parents are there, and his mom's trying to get him to do chores and everything.
Yeah.
To this isn't working out. Go live with your brother, who's trying to be a really good mentor,
Right.
and get Daniel into like the balance of life and have a job and like work his own way. To getting evicted from there, to moving in with his sister, who gives Daniel the space to be himself, which is happy and all, but Daniel
Was it
being
detrimental?
Daniel being himself means if the opportunity to join the carnival happens,
It's going to happen.
It's happening.
He's skipping town on a
Right.
moped to join it.
Yeah, he's hopping on a train.
Yeah, and he didn't call for like quite a
months.
while. Yeah.
It sounded like
I
he
think
called on Father's Day.
Wasn't until
saying,
Father's Day,
saying like, oh, I'm okay. Like, why are you even working?
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Which is just crazy.
yeah. And then at that point, he's in Houston,
Yeah.
which is where I think he starts working at McDonald's after, after he meets up with Kathy McCarthy.
And Glass Eye.
Glass Eye. Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting too. Sorry.
No, go.
I thought it was interesting too that like when he found himself in trouble after he got jumped or whatever, he just went to a church and they were like, "Let's get you an apartment." Like, is that really all I have to do to get a place to live? And like in Houston, I'm going to Houston.
Church of Christ.
Seriously.
Find a Church of Christ.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
I think Daniel just had something about him that
that people just wanted to help him.
I feel like you need some help, sir. And I think I'm going to do that for you.
Right. I feel like it's probably not safe for you to be just out here on the streets.
Yeah. As we alluded to, so he has this job at McDonald's. He ends up attacking his manager with a pipe at one point, which sent Daniel into a psychiatric hospital. While he was at the psychiatric hospital, though, and Daniel kind of retired from music, that's when his following blew up. Jeff Tartikoff was out there doing the Lord's work, copying all of his cassettes, sending them all out, making the t-shirts.
That is the coolest part about this whole documentary, in my opinion.
For sure. And
the like feet on the ground, like
the DIY,
just going out and
yes.
giving the tapes to people, and
that's the heart of this documentary.
Oh my God, dubbing tapes. Watching him do that was like, it took me back there immediately.
Pushing the play and record at the same time.
Yeah.
And he's getting all this recognition for his music, and eventually he starts getting noticed because none other than Kurt Cobain is wearing one of his shirts, the same one that Brice is wearing, but reversed in color.
Yeah.
Right. Because Brice is a little bit of a goth kid. Sometimes he's wearing all black. So if you're not watching on YouTube, you should be. So, okay, never mind.
You could see this shirt and more.
Yeah, you'll never.
What does that
You'll
mean?
never know what's on our actual stream unless you get on there. You won't notice our sign here that says "Welcome Strangers" with the little monster guy on it.
It's a frog.
Yeah,
That looks like an alien.
that's not a fucking frog.
What sound does the frog make?
Oh,
Hi, how are you? Yeah, you got to
God,
listen
where
to
you
the
been?
album.
Yeah.
Come on.
There's a little Captain America. Anyway,
There's a little Captain America.
two large record labels go after Daniel. So Elektra and Atlantic, they're in a bidding war for Daniel while he's in the psych hospital, which is fucking crazy.
Yeah, that is nuts.
No pun intended. He was able to get a contract that was known, at least at the time, to be one of the most one-sided record deals ever made in favor of an artist. They actually took his mental health into consideration with it, which was pretty cool. But because Elektra had Metallica on their label, who Daniel believed them to be evil, which they're not, they're just corporate assholes too, just like everyone else.
Yep.
He decided to sign with Atlantic and to fire his manager, Jeff Tartikoff, which
bad idea.
Bad move, Daniel.
Bad move.
Sorry, Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks.
Anytime something was going good in Daniel's life,
Sabotage.
Daniel would make it go bad.
Yeah.
And this was
sabotage type of a situation.
This was probably the worst of it.
Right. Yeah. That's when Dan put out his tape Fun, which ended up being his worst.
Not very much.
It ended up being not very much.
Fun.
It sold like 2,000 copies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was his
through Atlantic.
least most bestest one.
Yeah.
There's one. I probably can't do Crazy Dave or Creepy Dave on here because he'll get mad at me.
Who will?
Creepy Dave.
Let's try it. Let's see what happens.
Hey, this is my best most my best most favorite episode. And my fancy butthole.
Your fancy butthole.
Creepy Dave.
Lost.
Okay, bye.
Okay.
Creepy Dave does some fun videos.
Yeah.
That's all.
Creepy Dave, reach out to us, info.talkumentary@gmail.com.
Did you forget what it was?
Yeah, I forgot.
That's why you had to say it earlier.
Okay, so Daniel Johnston's art was interesting, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
I liked the little
yeah, did we have
people with the
favorites?
fins. The little tiny fin guys. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So let me play this portion right here. Little portion here.
Yeah, there's some themes, I mean, with the artwork, do some Captain America's, some ducks. I do a lot of ducks, and they're like my armies, and sometimes I use them in my battles against Satan.
Oh my God.
Daniel's art mirrors his songwriting in many ways. The same characters, the same themes. There are plenty of drawings that refer to unrequited love. You'll find the same characters such as Casper the Friendly Ghost, Captain America, Frankenstein appears quite often. You have Joe the boxer and the eternal struggle, the eternal battle. For 2 years, all Daniel drew were fight scenes of a boxer fighting a creature in the ring. The boxer clearly represented Daniel while the creature was evil. This was Vile Corrupt from the Hi How Are You album. The piece titled Daniel Johnston's Symbolical Visions is in many ways the Rosetta Stone of Daniel's art. It has all the figures and symbols that appear in so many of his drawings, from Kathy McCarty's glasses to a baby block to the man with the sawed-off head to torsos. All of the familiar figures are there, 666, eyes, the pyramid. If you listen to all of Daniel's music and know the songs and then look at the drawings, they have added meaning.
Sometimes very hard to fathom what goes on in his mind. I can see what he's thinking just day by day in his drawings. He will put captions on his drawings that are coming right from deep inside. And by looking over his shoulder every day, I can get a little bit of what goes on in his mind.
A friend of mine that saw his art that's in the mental health field said, I know Daniel's going to heaven. He's already been to hell. She was looking at the artwork and she said, this is hellacious. I mean, someone tortured. And I don't even see it that way. A lot of his artwork I see is very happy and he really believes in love. I think he looks for that superhero idea of someone's going to rescue or save and be the good guy.
Did we have a favorite in Daniel's art? Something that he did or a recurring? Show that to the camera there. Is that a little Jesus?
Yeah.
That's cool.
It says Jesus is a vampire and he's saying Alakazam.
Yeah, I like that.
This is my favorite one.
Yeah. I do like the hi, how are you, the recurring, the eyeball thing, that guy just referred to it as the Vile Corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
But I think my favorite was the ducks. I loved the ducks. Most of them had little teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. What about you, Brice? What was your best most favorite?
Best most favorite Daniel Johnston was no, I they talked a little bit of the fight scenes.
Yeah.
And I think that's good because it's always like the heroes winning and beating this creature.
Yeah.
So there's one of like Frankenstein with some boxing gloves and
Yeah.
I like
you
that.
you like the sawed off head Joe Boxer kind of guy.
Yeah.
It's just an interesting way. I mean,
when they did the animation of him losing his mind with with the sawed off man, that was fun.
Yep. I agree. Okay. Lauren,
Yes.
do you remember when we went to that museum that was the old mental hospital?
The Glore. Is it Glore? Glore.
Glore. One of the exhibits showed the drawings from the residents.
Yeah.
So it's, to me, there's something, and we talked about it a little bit already, but there's something about seeing something coming straight out of the mind of someone that maybe doesn't communicate the same way or has a hard time expressing themselves, and being able to look at, an unfiltered look into their side. And that's what his dad was saying in that clip we just listened to, was I could tell, I'd look over his shoulder and I could tell what was going on in his brain by the things he was drawing and the things he was writing. It's a little bit scary to see that sometimes, because, the psychiatric person or whatever, the person in the mental health field that his sister was talking about, she said he's been to hell. Well, if you look at the photos of the pictures he was drawing when they talked about that, some of them did look pretty scary. And then other ones looked very hopeful and very happy. And, it's just that something about that outlet, especially with someone who has the sort of innate ability to recall shapes and whatnot. It's not just, you watch the horror movies where you've got a kid who draws the house and then the little scary figure in the background. It's not as cliche as that. And it's also not as bad as, just black circles all over everything. You just, every page has a black circle on it. We're talking about someone who can recall, as simple as Brice's shirt or the thing, but you can recall without looking at something, the shapes of a frog's leg, or or what the hand does when it comes back to punch. He didn't have any training, like some of the people I know, some of the people that have been on this show, like tattoo artists and things, they have that ability, but they've also worked very hard to get that. He's going, he never had to have that. He's doing basically the same kind of art at the beginning that he was doing toward the end. I'm not going to say that it never got any better, because I'm not like an expert in Daniel Johnston's, full catalog, but it's just there are dogs upstairs.
No, that was laughing. I thought.
I know, it sounded like
dogs.
Chihuahuas.
Thought it sounded like turkeys.
I'm gonna go tell them that. Okay.
It sounded like a bunch of hens.
All right. Before we get into our feelings, I do want to mention that sadly, Daniel Johnston did pass away on September 11th in 2019 at his home in Waller, Texas, where he was living at the end of the documentary. I guess I don't know if it was the same home, but it's the same town at least. He was only 58 years old when he died of a suspected heart attack. He is believed to have died overnight, a day after he had been released from the hospital for unspecified kidney problems. What I read about the funeral and what Jeff Fierzig said about it, it sounded very sweet. There were over 100 mourners there, and they spoke about the theme of love and hope that runs through much of Daniel's music. And at the reception, several musicians performed covers of Daniel Johnston's songs, which I think is really cool. There's probably a million more things we could talk about this documentary. There's a lot of things that happened, a lot of people that were introduced, and, but we could be, it's already been an hour and 15 minutes or so. And, we could probably keep going, and we still have the end of our show to get to. So let's move along. Anything else? Final things before we get into feelings?
Nope.
Okay. How did you feel when the credits rolled, Lauren? Happy it was over. Fuck.
I mean, yeah. One of the last things I wrote down was, I hate this. I felt relief when it was over. I felt.
But how did you feel watching Daniel dance around as Casper the Friendly Ghost?
I mean, that was kind of fun.
Yeah, it was.
I liked that mask a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot. Yeah, I didn't really have many feelings other than thank God that's done. Like I'm not. This is not for me.
Yep. Understood. Brice?
It felt like I had been on a journey,
Mm-hmm.
and it felt like a bit of mixed emotions.
Yep.
Because one of the last things we hear is his parents talk about, we want Daniel to be able to take care of himself and be okay on his own. And we think we're running out of time on that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time, you feel good that Daniel's in this spot where he's being taken care of and that he can continue to make art and do it without throwing his meds out the window. And
right.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I agree with you. Some mixed emotions. So when I watched this film, I didn't know for sure that Daniel Johnston had died already. So he died several years after the film was released. And I wasn't sure. I didn't look it up until after the film. So I didn't have his death weighing on me, on my feelings at the end. It was just kind of like, I was sort of waiting for it to say like Daniel Johnston passed away but it didn't. So I felt a little hopeful, a little inspired, but I also felt sad because when I feel like there may be, and I don't want to say that there wasn't the proper treatment for what he was dealing with, because a lot of it was his own, not doing what he needed to do. Little inspiration, little hope, little sadness. That's kind of how I was feeling. But I also was, as much as I did like this, I probably won't be rewatching this a whole bunch. This wasn't something that I feel, it's not like some of our others that I will probably revisit. So, but I really did like it. So, I consider this, when I talk about films being well made, I consider this to be one of the better made documentaries we've watched with regard to how well the filmmaking fits the subject matter. Mm-hmm. There was almost an insurmountable amount of work that had to go into getting the story put together and do it correctly in a way that people can understand and keeps people's attention. I feel like Fierzig really handled Daniel's mental illness like a pro, portrayed it so gently and genuinely, but also so empowering. So I consider this to be a pretty well-made documentary. What do you guys think?
I agree.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really well
very
made.
DIY too, which was kind of Fierzig's thing.
Cool.
So, Brice, this one's for you.
Okay.
What do you think, if anything, was the message trying to be conveyed? Was it just to tell a story, or was there a underlying message to this?
I think that it was just telling a story. I think you can draw your own messages from it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, yeah, there's a lot you can take away from it.
Sure.
But I think that was just part of the story.
You think the message, the heartbeat of this was the story of Daniel Johnston, not so much we need to tell, to give a message, we just need to tell a story.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Lauren, you agree or disagree?
I agree. I think I can't pull a message out of it. I don't know. I think it was just telling Daniel's story, and
sure,
if you learned something from it, then great. If not, you learned Daniel's story, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
what did you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think that it was there was a compelling story to tell, and you tell it with as much respect and leaving all trying to tell it as fully as you can in less than 2 hours.
Right.
You know, with all
kind of like
this
just like a behind the music type of a situation where it
Absolutely.
was just telling the story of the musician or the artist.
Yep. All right. Finally, we've come to the time where we need to rate this documentary with an official documentary rating. Each crew member scores the documentary on a scale of 1 to 10 items, with 10 being as bad as jumping out a window and breaking your legs. Did I just say that wrong?
10 being
Okay.
as bad?
Yeah.
With 1 being as bad
I wouldn't have even
as
caught
jumping
that.
out a window and breaking your legs on the way down, or when you hit the ground, I guess, and 10 being as good as Casper the Friendly Ghost. The item that is used for scoring changes each week depending on the content of the documentary that we watch. This week, we'll be using eyeball drawings as our rating item. So let's start with Brice. How many eyeball drawings, Bruce?
That would be 10 eyeballs.
10 eyeballs. This is your favorite.
It is.
We've already talked about that. You love this. There's nothing better.
love it.
that you've
Heavily
seen.
biased.
Yeah. Well,
more people should watch it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's
Just
go.
take care when you watch it, because it's not healthy for some people.
All right, sister, since you clearly are on the other end of that scale, how many eyeball drawings was this worth to you?
I gave this one 3 eyeball drawings.
Okay.
I gave it 3 because I thought it was really well made. I think that the production of it was great and the story was, well put together.
You just didn't enjoy it.
It was, I didn't
That's all right.
enjoy the way it made me feel.
Yep. Fair enough.
And it was visceral.
Yeah.
How it made me feel was like palpable. So
Yeah, like
I didn't like that
I
so much.
didn't want to sit through this.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
I equate it kind of to like the same feeling I had when I was watching one of those like Pray the Gay Away ones, or
Sure.
the churchy ones that
Yep.
hit a little bit too close to home.
Mm-hmm. I gave this 8 eyeball drawings because I really liked it. It didn't get higher than that because I think that's still a pretty good score, I guess. And I liked it more after talking with the director of this film, because getting some insight on that is always very, I don't know, it just kind of puts your bias towards the, you become a fan of that person and then you want to be a fan of what they do as well. So
knowing all the sleepless nights and the work spent on it, really.
It does. Yeah. It helps bring that score up a little bit too. So after averaging everyone's scores together, the official documentary rating for The Devil and Daniel Johnston is 7 eyeball drawings. Woo. Thanks everybody in the room and our listeners for putting your homemade cassette tapes into your boombox this evening with us. Hopefully your tape deck didn't eat the tape and you have to go in there with your fingernail and try to turn it to wind it back, or put like a pencil in there.
Yeah.
Pencils are good. Yeah. So if you don't know what I'm talking about,
Then you're,
then
way
you're younger
too young to
than
be listening to this episode.
Yeah, then you probably hated this
Then
episode.
it's past your bedtime.
Right.
man.
Yeah. As always, thanks to Lauren and Brice. You're both great. I'll totally promote your music when you get into the psych hospital, or I'll put if your drawings, and I'll put them on Etsy and sell them for you.
Okay.
I'm going to need a manager named Jeff. So
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
true.
Well, I'll find one for you.
Yeah.
Because that's what good managers do.
Jeff,
What?
kick Satan out.
Kick Satan out.
I have that written down as a quote. Kick Satan out. Kick Satan out. Kick
Why am I
Satan
having
out.
trouble remembering what the fuck this is?
Is that a thing?
It was in the documentary, mister. I've seen it 10 times.
Oh. Wow, color me silly. Okay, let's talk about next week's episode.
Color me silly.
First, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Have you ever had a dream?
Yes.
Have you ever had a dream and then when you woke up, you felt like it had been really, really real?
Mm-hmm.
So real that maybe you're like mad at your partner, or you like maybe you think you did something wrong or something like that. Have either of you had?
Yeah.
Speak. You don't just nod. I can't hear you.
Yes. I've said yes 15 times.
Yeah, a time or two.
Well, next week we're going to be diving into the story of a father's journey to free his son Ryan from a 40-year prison sentence for a brutal murder in which his son was convicted based on someone else's dream. A murder he did not commit, but someone dreamed that he did. Yeah. We're watching the 2015 true crime documentary called Dream Killer.
Oh, I can't
Dream/Killer. Have either of you heard of this?
No.
It looks wild. I haven't seen it yet,
I'm excited to watch it.
but it looks wild. Basically, from the trailer, it's like somebody dreamed that he killed someone and this other person was his accomplice, and none of it happened that way. And I don't know. It sounds crazy. So everyone, go out, check out the documentary Dream/Killer. It's like Dream /Killer. I don't know how. I guess it's just Dream Killer. But check it out before next week's episode. As I said at the beginning, rate and review our podcast. Follow us on all the stuff. If you've been listening this long, go to our social media or our YouTube, which I guess is social media as well. So any of it. And comment the word.
Bless you.
Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
How about Mountain Dew?
Mountain Dew's a good one. Yeah, we didn't even talk about Mountain Dew.
We drink Mountain Dew. We drink Mountain Dew.
Hey. I just don't like the
Keeps the demons away. So
It
we
keeps the
drink
demons
Mountain Dew.
All right, so comment the word Mountain Dew and we'll give you a shout out on one of our future episodes. Next week, join us as we dream someone into a guilty verdict, one documentary at a time. On behalf of Lauren.
That's me.
Bruce.
That's me.
Matt and DJ in that booth and the entire documentary family. I am your host, Jeff Kwansky. And I want to thank you all for listening. I hope you keep your minds open and be kind to each other. Goodbye.
Keep Satan out.
Keep Satan out. Keep Satan out. Alfred Nevarez was a member of which 1990s boy band? Was it Boyz II Men, Surface, London Beat, or All for One? Also, I don't know the answers, but I'll have to like push the thing. It's a like BuzzFeed quiz or something.
Oh man.
Gosh.
Alfred Nevarez, Boyz II Men, Surface, London Beat, or All for One?
I've never heard of London Beat or Surface.
Me neither.
I'm gonna go All for One.
Yeah, let's go All for One.
That's correct.
Yeah! I knew it wasn't Boyz II Men. All for One's the only one I've ever heard of other than that.
Who hit number one in 1992 with I'll Be There?
Mariah Carey.
Correct. Yeah. I didn't even have to give you the... I'll only give you the options if you don't know it.
Okay.
How many members were there in 1990s boy band 98 Degrees?
Ooh. So we got Nick Lachey.
Nick Lachey with the terrible sun tattoo.
Right. Then there was somebody named Drew.
Okay.
There was the one that I can see in my head, but I don't know his name.
Okay.
I think there was 4.
So it's 4, 3, 6, or 5.
I think it's 4.
Okay. You're right. It's 4.
Yeah. I had a poster of them on my wall. They were dressed as firefighters. In case
How many members were in the band?
Tell us more.
How many members were in the band, the R&B band Surface?
I don't know who that is.
3. The answer's 3.
Okay.
Prince had a number 1 hit in 1991 with which color?
Which color?
Raspberry?
Cream,
No.
white, purple, or red?
Raspberry. That was
cream.
no way.
Yeah, it's cream.
Oh, because it's the year.
1991.
Yeah.
That's way later.
That's way later.
Who had a 1990s hit with Release Me and Hold On?
Got it. Wilson Phillips.
Yeah, bullseye. Who sang the hit song Unbreak My Heart?
Ooh, I got this one too. Tony Braxton.
You got it. We're going to keep going.
Yeah.
Crisscross had a _1 hit with which song in 92?
Jump.
Yep. Which band had a one-hit wonder in 98 with You Get What You Give?
You get what you give. I might need the guesses on
Blink 182.
No.
Far from a one-hit wonder.
Right.
Two Princes.
Oh.
New Radicals.
Okay.
Or Aqua.
Okay. It has to be New Radicals, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was going to say Two Princes that's not right. Or Two Princes? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know Aqua's got another hit, so
right.
That's
okay.
Yeah, Aqua. I knew.
Who sang Genie in a Bottle?
That's
Christina Aguilera.
I was gonna try and
let's do one more.
I could picture it in my head.
Cher had a UK #1 hit with which song in 1998?
It's
yeah.
Yep.
What's it called though?
Believe.
Yeah. This says here, it says You're Awesome.
Yeah, we are.
Thanks everybody for listening to a Talkumentary After Hours. I just made that up.
Talkumentary After Dark.
You're listening to Talkumentary After Hours, where we'll listen to Prince's hit song, Creamberry Beret.
Cream Purple Beret. All right. Bye, bitches.
Goodbye, bitch.